We're delighted to have with us tonight Illac Diaz, the founder of Leader of Light. Illac, welcome to our Sustainable Impact Hub here in Davos.
Thank you very much.
Illac, could you give us a bit of your background? How did you come up to create the Leader of Light?
Actually, it came from a paper of OCHA about localizing the manufacturing. And it was really interesting when I saw that 60 to 80% of humanitarian donations was in logistics. And when I realized that, and I was saying, this has nothing to do with the problem. If it could be something that could be solved, we could help many more people. And at that time, there was one of the first superstorms, the Category 5 that hit the Manila, where 10,000 people died and 4 million people lost their homes. Typhoon Haiyan. Mm-hmm. And one of the most important things for me was to displace the kerosene that was dripping over the children, giving them third-degree burn, the expense, and just giving light for safety for people walking. And then I realized that really we could do this kind of solar lights. So immediately we took plastic bottles filled with water and bleach, and we stuck them through the roof of this. They have this barracks just to give light during the day. So refracted, it comes in, and it provided 55 watts of light. The whole place, from being gloomy, was suddenly filled with light. The same thing, like you call it light tunnel. We were able to install 7,000 of them. Giving just a little bit of money for people to install it with I said, there was so much plastic bottles being thrown away. Then from there I started saying, if would you like to learn how to convert kerosene lamps to solar with the same amount that you were giving, 50 pesos, $1 a week worth of kerosene. Yep. Would you want to displace that and make them into solar? So we took the kerosene lamps, and with very simple copper, we were scratching copper and putting simple, circuits, we were able to do a solar lamp. And this one made all the difference. For the next 5 years, they had a solar lamp, and we got PVC pipes, bamboo, to make street lights, and the crime went down 70%, Olivier. 70%, and so that one we started sharing with communities around the Philippines in women cooperatives, and now we're in 30 countries around the world since we met, and we have 1,400 very enthusiastic young people that empowered. They could be part of the Sustainable Development Goal by giving them the skills to convert sunlight into solar.
This is very interesting because for me, what you have done is true bottom-up innovation, coming with a challenge that you have found out after this circular Haiyan. But it's looking at from a very counterintuitive how a plastic bottle actually could provide daylight. No one has ever thought about it, but it's so obvious. That's what I love about a Liter of Light.
Well, plastic bottles, like soda bottles especially, they're good for 100 years. There's no way that you can get injection molding out into the field. No electricity, and once again, the machinery, very difficult to do. But plastic bottles are everywhere. Of course, we work with different people. Alfredo Moser, who helped conceptualize some of it, and of course, solar is something that they come in microcircuits. There's no way for people to repair. But you ask electricians and you develop it, and you find out with 6 parts that you can find in a local electronic store or in electronic waste, they can really come up with massive supply chains to do it. Very interesting how vegetable farmers from all over the country go into the city and then come up with empty baskets all the way back to villages on islands, and you can just put the parts over there for the women to assemble there. They rent the solar lights or they sell it. They make a big business opportunity out of it. And later on they franchise it, and next thing you know, you have women cooperatives moving from traditional crafts into clean energy. And so the thing that is really powerful is to understand that these kind of innovations is using that silent, if you want to call it, several elephants in the room. It's like, why don't you teach people? Why don't you make them part of the change? Why don't you use the youth, which is, the most dominant group in developing nations, as your army of change makers? Why does it have to be a company with hired staff? I mean, there's enough force for good to make a difference. My professor once said, and it was very interesting as I was starting to say, how can we change the world of clean energy from the bottom up? He said, well, he put a dot in the middle of the paper and says, well, those are the companies trying to make a difference. What about the rest of the white paper? What's the possibilities out there that you can think about that hasn't been done by these companies that are giving 1 million solar lights, but in 1.5 years it all breaks down? What is the other possibilities are there? Why are you only looking at the problems of solar because it's already a fail? You know, there's a failure in microsolar, but there's the rest of the possibility, and that's where we started to say, okay, how can we start from scratch? How can we use materials credit? How can we give women 100, 200 solar lanterns? Will they make it well in the village? It turns out they make it excellently, because if your neighbor sees a not so good product, they will chop you up. So really, there's good service, well done, and basically you also don't want to manage a whole global supply chain. You just want people to grow. So this thing of you as the global innovation hub is great, because as I read through your newsletters, I'm constantly inspired that there's this, telling people that there are failures, very important, but there's also successes, and we just need more of that, people trying out that white paper.
Exactly, and the Global Humanitarian Lab is exactly there to give a space for testing, learning from failure, and doing this really hard work, which is the process of innovation and creating an ecosystem where this can be done.
I was passing by and I saw Salesforce as one of your sponsors, and it's just by chance that I'm bringing 20 Salesforce employees who wanted that innovation. They wanted to get their hands dirty. They want, we don't want just to let an NGO. We want to be part of it. So I make them build streetlights from scratch, and we're going to Kenya from Salesforce France, and they're going to be the one implementing it from the ground up. So it's great that your sponsors actually see that to give technology in the hands of the millions is better than giving it to one or two companies, or even a development laboratory, the development aid to change the world. It's just more powerful. So we're very excited to be here, and very excited to have seen what you've done with this community.
Thanks, Illac. And I understand you will be at Expo 2020?
So yes, the nice thing about Expo 2020 is they want new stories. There are already large-scale international stories, but they want stories that from the bottom up. They want successful social enterprises that have not been heard, but is changing the world, because they're starting to respect that the fact that there's the South-South approach, that innovation from the South is also creating massive change, but not given a change. So they give it, it's called an Expo Live, which is $100,000 for innovations that can prove it. So they're going with the new round, but we just got our approval. And Expo is going to be the grandest place to showcase this to 70 million people that will go, and 1 billion impressions. So it's great that the first tenants are actually bottom-up approaches that work. They really give, as you're trying to do, spotlight and say, wait, there are things that you can invest in that haven't been built before. And I think this is your vision as well.
Illac, thank you so much for joining us.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.